future where we know we're not alone. This talk will explain the evolution of the perception of UFOs and ET and the future that lies ahead for humanity. Hi, my name is Cristina Gomez. I'm a UFO and paranormal researcher. I do have a YouTube channel documenting my research under the same name. I started seriously researching the topic back in 2020 when I was entering university. And now this is my final year. I'm so excited. I'll be graduating with a degree in communication and business. But during my years studying in the university, I've started to make mention to my peers and my professors of my interest in UFOs and other mysteries and the possibility of not only microbial life, but intelligent life being abundant throughout the universe. At first, I was pretty hesitant to talk about these things openly with those on campus and my friends as well. But there were a few things that I began to realize that this was no longer a taboo topic like it was a few decades ago. And let's get into that. I've asked people on campus, people my age, in their 20s, and even in their teens as well, asking, what do you think about UFOs, aliens, ET? Are they real? And people, they literally look at me, they shrug their shoulders, and they're like, yeah, duh, science has proven that. Now, no one's come out and say we have alien bodies. No, of course not. But in the aspects of science and the mathematics and finding all these exoplanets at this point in time, about like 5,000, at this point, when people say, oh, obviously we're not the only intelligent species in the universe, it's a very cliche thing to say at this point in time. For me, I'm just like, really? You can literally say anything else, but you're going to use those words? You know what? That's fine. It's a great start. But it is true. This is true, and science is backing that up. Now, during this Mars invasion back in 1938, the World of the Worlds that was broadcasting on CNN, it caused a frenzy. People were panicking, at least as the story goes. And that was just a totally different generation. They didn't have the foundation of the topic of UFOs and aliens the way that we do in 2023. Media has played a very big role in our acceptance of aliens. There are so many movies, and we're going to get into that rather shortly. But the James Webb Space Telescope is a biggie here because it launched back in December of 2021. I was there watching that launch right on YouTube. I was so excited. And so far, the JWST has captured some beautiful images, but it's also opened some doors for scientists and astronomers to revise old questions that they believe to have answers to, and that has changed. We do need to keep in mind that the very first exoplanet was found back in 1992. So before that time, it was just the planets in our solar system, and that's all we had to our understanding. But after that, then that's where the bigger questions began to arise. There are other planets out there. There are potentially other Earth-like planets out there. And that was a really big game changer. But here is the interesting the James Webb Space Telescope that has just been recently released. And that is the universe is almost twice as old as we thought, according to a new study that challenges the leading cosmological model. Experts from the University of Ottawa have devised a new model and claim that the Big Bang happened 26.7 billion years ago. That is almost twice as old as previous estimates, which suggested that our universe dates back about 13.7 years. This is something that has been taught for the last few decades, telling people this is how old our universe is. That's that. Do not ask questions. But now with this telescope, we're figuring out that it's now twice that time. Keep that in mind. Why is that important? That means that all these other planets that potentially have life on it could create intelligent life and then therefore create this life that's able to traverse the entire universe. And we haven't been able to do that, at least not yet. When we also look at planet Earth being 4.5 billion years, having 5 mass extinctions, we can ask the questions, was there previously intelligent life on Earth that was able to evacuate before those mass extinctions? Is that a possibility? People have been asking this for a long period of time. Allegedly, there is no proof on that. But what I'm getting at is, with the universe being 26.7 billion years old versus the 13.7, it just adds another layer to, we simply, as the cliche term goes, we simply cannot be the only beings in the universe. But looking into this and knowing that in the future we are not alone, we can look at the past of certain other cases that have happened, some peaceful and some not so much. We haven't, as many would claim, we haven't had an invasion just yet. But we can look at the case from Colares, Brazil in 1977. If you were to ask that little fishing town if there was an invasion, they would say yes, absolutely. Our people were terrorized. We were we were beat up by these beams of light. We have these puncture wounds. 2 people died. That would be classified as an invasion because they lived and worked and did everything in fear, so much so that they would have to travel in groups all times of the day so that they would not be attacked by these alien beings that seemed rather aggressive. And something more recent is the Peru alien invasion in Alto Nani. This is another question that, if you were to ask the local people right there in that tribe, saying, do you think this is an invasion? They would say, yes, absolutely. We are being terrorized by these aliens. We tried shooting at them and they're not coming down. They just keep on trucking along. But if you were to ask the government that question, they have come forward and said, no, it is just illegal miners using jetpacks. Last time I checked, and please correct me if I'm wrong, miners are not that rich. A jetpack right now is about $400,000, a little under $500,000. You're going to need a few of those, and then plus all of the equipment in order to conduct proper mining, right? Is that even logical? Some are going to say, yeah, sure. If the government says so, yeah, definitely. And others are saying, are you out of your mind? Do you think we're going to believe something like that? I'd much rather believe and have a higher chance of believing in these tribal men saying that they are being attacked by aliens more so than illegal miners. And you really can't, when it comes to the explanation from the Peruvian government, you can't have it two ways. In this case, it's a catch-22. Some say you cannot believe the government, but in this case, I believe their explanation. And then you have others that say, "Oh, I totally believe the government, but I don't believe this story of the jetpack." It's very difficult. It's very confusing. But if we put the government aside, disclosure with instances like these, with the media, with movies, documentaries, and TV shows, disclosure will come from the people, those that keep their eyes on the sky, such as yourself, me, and everyone around you. Will the government ever come forward and say, yes, we are in contact with aliens? Yes, we do have alien bodies? I don't think so. At least not in, I would say, my lifetime. Now, could that change? I guess it just depends on the circumstances. But disclosure comes from people like these, that in Colares, Brazil in 1977, in Peru from just a few weeks back, well, actually in July to be specific. And then there are people that look up and they have their own encounters. You have the categories of the abductees as well. You have all of these different aspects. And those are the people that are going to bring disclosure more so than the government. But in these cases, will we have some form of peaceful contact? Have we ever had a level of peaceful contact? We have to ask this both for humanity. Have we ever casually gone to a tribe in a different country a few hundred years back, and was that very peaceful? No. When you are in fear, you shoot first and you ask questions later. Is that still the same case today? Yes. For the majority of people, Yes, but the next question is, what does peaceful even mean? Experiencers, abduction people, but those that have been abducted, right? Then you have the 1955 contract allegedly signed by President Eisenhower. And as the story goes, which by the way, it is one of my favorite stories, if it is real or not, it's just one that is a part of the UFO lore. And it's something that it feels a little weird, and yet, could there be truth behind it? Well, as the saying goes, truth is stranger than fiction. But this contract that was allegedly signed by President Eisenhower back in 1955, he was signing off the rights, pretty much, of people so they can get abducted by certain type of an alien species in return for advanced alien technology. Since that time, since 1955, there has been a pretty exponential growth in our technology, a beautiful spike, I would almost say. And is there a connection between the two? Is it a coincidence? Well, that's up for you to decide, but it is a story that needs to be considered when we look at the future of when we do know and realize that there is aliens out there, but are they walking among us? Another thing that might come forward that plays a pretty significant role in the conversation of UFOs is religion. Now, this can be taboo for some, but it is something that does need to be addressed because there is this level of public reaction and the church response to these types of things. And not just the church, but this is for any place of worship, any religion. But it's believed by a few people that research the aspect of religion and UFOs, one of those people being Dr. Diana Pasulka, say people that have faith, people that follow a religion, have a higher chance of accepting aliens than those that do not have a belief system, such as an atheist. Why is that? They already believe in angels, they already believe in demons. If they're Muslim, they already believe in jinn. These are classified as alien. Why is that? Because they do not originate right here on Earth. They have their own realm, their own planet, maybe. But these would be classified as interdimensionals and or extraterrestrials. And then I've spoken to Dr. Paul Thigpen. He is a theologian and also a very heavy researcher in the Catholic Church. And he says, I don't think demons would need a nuts and bolt craft. When we talk about these UFO type conversations, yes, you have those that are very open minded and the future seems very bright in this aspect. But then you have another group of people that say, nope, everything that's in the sky, all these things, they're evil, they're demonic. Aliens don't exist, aliens are demons. And this can be a little bit difficult to have conversations with these people in the aspect of when you think something as fact, as a hardcore fact, good luck trying to change that. You will not be able to. But we fear the unknown. That is one aspect of humanity that is engraved into all of us. We fear things that we do not understand. And if it portrays any type of levels of advanced technology, or from a few years back, a few decades back, maybe classifying it as magic, we would say because we do not understand, therefore it is demons, therefore it is evil. But yet, here is the loophole here. Demons are not what many would say are human. Can there be those that change? Okay, maybe as the stories go, but they have their own realm, a hell realm, right? They're not going to need a nuts and bolts craft, at least to my understanding. They just manifest where sin is. And the same thing with angels. They shouldn't need a nut and bolt craft. There are some stories of them riding chariots. But then we can go a little bit back and say these people, our ancestors who saw things that they classified as angels, that they classified as demons, were they extraterrestrial? Were they just aliens that were being confused with our understanding of religion. And we can go so deep into that, but that is a whole different aspect. We could do a whole different talk on that, and I don't want to spend too much time here. But going back just a touch, people of faith, by many, believe that they will have a better understanding and be more accepting of if there was a form of alien disclosure, more so than those that do not have any kind of belief system and only think that there is just you and me. Is that the case? Depends who you ask. One other thing, while we're still talking about this, because I do have a very interesting quote that I'd like to read to you, because this aspect of religion and UFOs have played hand in hand for a few centuries. Because while in the 1750s, there was a book titled Secrets of Heaven by Emanuel Swedenborg, and it was about the spiritual aspect of the Bible. But the author also speaks about other planets in our solar system that have intelligent life, like Mars and Venus and the moon and things of that nature. But he was saying that all these entities will find their own path to know and find God. And he goes into more detail on this aspect in his other book, Life on Other Planets, published during the same time frame. And Swedenborg asserts that not only does life exist on other planets, but the universe is teeming with it. God's purpose is to bring about a heavenly society, and this purpose isn't limited to Earth alone. And with this, people find validity in religion across the board, not just Christianity, not just Islam, not just Buddhism, but across the board. People look at this to help them find answers. But if we were to take a step back and we take away the terms angel, demon, jinn, demigod, and so on, we just remove those labels and just look at it from the attributes that it has portrayed, because they are not human and they don't possess all the human characteristics or powers in this case, they are classified as alien. And this is where labels get very, very confusing across different cultures. And we might assume that they're totally different entities. But what if they are one in the same kind of category? So labels can be very, very confusing, and taking them off makes it a little bit easier to understand. But then looking at media and how that has changed, I would say since about the 1960s into present day, there have been some fantastic, iconic movies and shows that have set a foundation for people to become interested in these types of topics. Because one day humanity will travel the stars, very much like in Star Trek, which first aired back in 1966. Can you believe that? It feels so long ago, but it's something that it's a TV show that is still running today. It's one of the biggest franchises ever. And for many kids that watched it during that time, they said, "Oh my gosh, I love space. I want to be an explorer. I want to be an astronaut. I want to be an astrobiologist." When we see the media, it is very influential amongst children because children are like sponges. They absorb anything and everything. And when they see this at a young age, they become excited. They become like, I want to be that. A great example of this is little boys that get bitten by spiders so that they can be their favorite superhero, Spider-Man, or those jumping off a high ledge to hopefully fly like Superman. People and kids that watch shows, watch movies, they want to be like the people that they see. And for things like Star Trek or even Star Wars, you have these explorers that are specifically exploring space and interacting with aliens and things that look nothing like humans at all. But could we as a civilization integrate with extraterrestrial visitors? It's hard to say. Right now in 2023, I don't think so. I don't. I think, and for using a Star Trek reference, We're like the Klingons. We are xenophobes. We do not accept anything that does not look like us. We don't even accept people that look similar to us, but not the exact same. If there were extraterrestrials monitoring humanity, they would say, look, if they can't even respect or be kind to each other that come from the exact same species, imagine how they're going to react to us when we come forward. We're going to be chopped up, slaughtered, and put into a lab so quick, like it's nobody's business. But once we can pass that obstacle of no longer fearing the unknown, would we properly be able to integrate? I think yes, that is a high possibility, because if we're able to see the value in other species, have it be for resources or knowledge or some form of technology, for the majority of humanity, they will be able to work alongside them or even to share the planet and or other resources with these entities. And that is the future that we want to live in. That is the future that we can thrive, is when we share knowledge with others. This is how civilizations in the past from human history have thrived over time, like the United States when it was first created back in 1776 onward, where they had so many different cultures come in. Very specifically, if you're familiar with the story, from New York, where it was the land of promise, the land that had roads built with gold. It was because of all of these different cultures were coming onto this new country, setting foot on it, and bringing their understanding, their resources, their culture, and their knowledge, allowing the country to thrive, being one of the biggest superpowers in the world. And this was a few about 100 years ago now, but you see where I'm getting at. When we share information, when we share different cultures and ideas, it only is beneficial to us more so than detrimental. Now, when will that be? I would love it for it to be tomorrow. That would be incredible, but it takes time to adjust. A really great example of this is one movie called Childhood's End. If you haven't seen it and you're really interested in this topic, you're going to love the movie. It's a series of several movies, but it is one that it's a really big game changer in the mentality of how we see aliens, how we see demons as well, and how they're depicted. And it's one that shifted my paradigm when I watched it, and I've seen it multiple times, and it has laid a foundation to allow me to understand that when the world receives contact from extraterrestrials, that is when we will have truly a future where we know we're not alone, where we know we're going to have to learn to get along, not just with the human species, which people struggle with, but also with an entirely different species, with a whole different culture, with a whole different history than humanity by who knows how vast. Okay. And maybe that moment, maybe, just maybe, some form of mass disclosure, some form of invasion will finally unite humanity. Maybe that is what we need in order for us to get along, either have it be to fight against an alien race or to integrate with them. That depends on the moment when we get there. Will that be in our lifetime? I really do hope so. That would be amazing, just to see how the whole thing pans out, how it all plays out. But it could happen at any moment. There are so many stories and there are so many alleged accounts of people saying, all right, aliens are going to be disclosing it for themselves in the year 2023, the year 2030, the year 45. We hear this so often. It's always another year ahead. But what if they get it right just this once, where aliens really do come down, they really do show themselves, and they look nothing like humans? Or what if they'll look exactly like humans and we wouldn't be able to tell the difference, like the alleged stories of the Nordics? You see what I'm saying here? Would we have a better acceptance rate if they looked like us? Or if they looked like a total alien, oh, like the praying mantis, that would be pretty scary. I'd be a little nervous there, mainly because I'm just not too fond of bugs. But if they were to look a bit more like your normal friends in your friend group or people that you see online, it should be, you would think, a little bit more easy to accept than those that look totally foreign to us. But, on the optimistic side, as I had started this off, if you're to ask people in their teens, in their 20s, in their 30s, do you believe in aliens? Just ask them that question. They'll look at you like you're silly and they'll say, yeah, duh, obviously. But we have to thank TV shows like The Twilight Zone that came out back in 1965, The Outer Limits in 1963. People's minds have opened because of these TV shows, and that's how I got interested in this topic is because of The Twilight Zone. Then you have Star Trek that came out in 1966, Star Wars in 1977, all the way up into the more modern movies like the Alien movie that came out in 1979. It was a big hit. Okay, then you also have Contact in 1997. Loved it, by the way. Even up to 2016, where the movie Arrival came forward. All of these movies, and there's so many more, it's only just a mere handful out of the hundreds of things that have come out that have laid a foundation for millions of people to think outside of this humanistic earthly bubble and to look into the stars and say and think to themselves, I wonder if there's life out there. You see all of those thousands of white dots in the sky, all of those, almost all of those, have planets, and probably more than one out of all those planets. How many of them are in the habitable zone? How many of them could potentially harbor life? Even if the planet is tidally locked, you have that beautiful horizon that is perfectly in the middle between the pure brightness and the pure darkness, creating this almost like perfect paradise environment for those tidally locked planets. And so when we allow ourselves to muse about these things, to use our imagination, and then to research them to the best of our ability, we begin to ask bigger and better questions than ever before. And with these questions, this is where we have a future where we know we are not alone. Even though the media has played a very big role in once again setting that foundation, setting that nice cement for a beautiful house we're going to build together, these are based on people, not all the time, but based on people's experiences, those that have come forward and have told their stories to the public. That requires a significant amount of courage. Why is that? Well, before really 2017, people were ridiculed. They were laughed at. They were shunned by their family and friends and society. And while people, at least behind the scenes, have always had an interest in aliens and UFOs and ET and all of that very fun stuff, when people are to come forward and become a public figure, that is where the ridicule comes forward. And this is very detrimental for anybody. We take people's criticism rather seriously, more so than compliments. And this is a common theme across humanity. It's a very psychological aspect to the human mind where we cling on to the negative more so than the positive. But these people that have shared their experiences, have it be just merely a sighting or a basic encounter or an abduction or even a download, they could have kept those stories to themselves, holding it very near in their heart, and then maybe having a deathbed confession. But can you imagine the amount of people that have had encounters and have never spoken a word? How much data we've lost because of these people that fear ridicule, that fear to lose their jobs, to lose their loved ones because of something they witnessed? Probably so much data, so much has been lost because of that fear. But since 2017 and the article written by Ralph Blumenthal and Leslie Kean referring to the secret program of ATIP that was funded by the Pentagon, the conversation has shifted. The paradigm has shifted in a lot of people's minds to where they feel a little bit more confident in talking about this and showing their interest in this because they look at the government as a pillar of strength, of confidence in some aspects, and saying, well, if the government is taking this seriously and coming forward, there must be some truth behind it. Now, use that how you will. It's a catch-22. Do you believe the government? Do you not? It's up to you on this. But there are a lot of people that listen to what the government has to say. And so for them to release UAP reports by the UAPTF and then later by Arrow to then getting witness hearings that took place July 26, 2023, where the government is showing this interest publicly about UFOs, people are becoming inspired and saying, again, okay, this means something. It's not just silly fun and games. It's not just funny bedtime stories. This is legit. And my tax dollars are going to the funding for these research projects. And hey, you know, when you pay your taxes, you want to know where that money is going because that is your hard earned cash. All right. I get that. I want to know every single project that is out there so that I can mentally agree or disagree to them, but knowing that I am paying for it. You get what I mean here? So, with experiences, with abduction cases, with the government coming forward, these people didn't have to. They should. I totally agree. Yes, we should get a level of transparency. We need to get disclosure in some way. But there's this level of free will in some aspects, depending on what aspect you're looking at. But there is this level of free will to where they don't have to disclose anything if they don't want to, referring to private citizens. Now, for the government, they can say, oh, that's not FOIA-able, which isn't a word in the dictionary, but it definitely needs to be, referring to the Freedom of Information Act, to where, as many of us know, John Greenwald Jr. of the Black Vault puts in FOIA reports and saying, I want information on this, this, and this. But that is something that anyone can do once you have a basic idea of how to do it. And they can simply say, no, we cannot give that information. It is classified. They can say that. They can. But in some respects, they say, all right, I can provide this information. A lot of it will be redacted. However, yes, we have had this interest in UFOs for X amount of years. When we look at David Grush's interview that he did for News Nation with Ross Coulthart, he says the United States government has been interested in UFOs and has had a cover-up program since the 1930s, referring to the Italian UFO crash, which I was really not familiar with until David Grush mentioned it in his interview. I did some research and I said, oh my goodness, there are reports on this, which was absolutely fascinating. The more people that we listen to, the more data we can collect, and that's when we can create this beautiful tapestry and attempting to better understand this mystery. But it's not something that you can merely do alone. There are so many brilliant minds that are looking into this topic from so many different aspects. You have the religious aspect, you have the scientific aspect, like the Galileo Project run by Harvard professor Avi Loeb. You have the historical aspect, like so many pioneers before me, such as Stanton Friedman, John Mack. These types of paths that you can take, if you take one of them at a time, it's going to be very difficult to find your answers. But if you mesh them up all together like a beautiful, delicious curry dish, it's going to taste so much better with all of those different flavors versus just having one spice on your plate. Do you see the metaphor that I'm using here? When we bring so many brilliant minds together, understanding all of their different perspectives and aspects and their versions of their research, we are able to create a beautiful mural that is a lot more complete than just taking one path. There are multiple ways to get to the very top of the mountain, but if you can find the path that has been treaded on maybe the least in some ways, it might be the best one. But take what you want from this. I'm not here to tell you what to do and or what to believe, but this is a future where we know we are not alone. We need to remember to keep our eyes on the skies.